let's dive deep into how do you get started in all of this, if that's okay with you. You started with collecting art yourself, and I know you were collecting other NFTs as well. What was your journey to build Le Random and all of that?
Yeah, of course. Well, first of all, like, thank you guys for having me. I appreciate the invitation. Yeah, it's true. I started collecting NFTs in like late 2020. Like I was already into crypto in like 2017, 2018 during the ICO boom. Back then I was still at uni and I was just,
How did you get into the ICO
it
boom, if I may
was really
ask?
random. Like it just caught my attention. Like during university, like whenever I was in like the exam periods, like I would get like super distracted. Like it was so easy for me to get into like really strange like rabbit holes. And in that period, that was like the ICO boom. And I
And
actually started translating white papers for like quite a few projects. Like I
okay.
translated them from English to Dutch. And I was finding like they were asking me to do it like on Bitcoin Talk and Bounty Hive, like all these like strange forums, which are now totally gone. But I must say that like back then for me, like crypto was interesting, but it didn't like fully click. Like the concept of like digital ownership, like for me, like with tokens, like I didn't fully see like the potential like at that time. But then in 2020, like I got back into it like through NFTs. And then I was really like, yeah, this makes total sense. Like this clearly has to exist. Like it makes sense that you should be able to own like images and videos and software pieces like on the internet.
When was the Funny Guys Twitter
Um,
account? When did
I
you
think
start working on that, basically?
I had the account in 2017, but under a different name. Early 2021, I changed the name to TheFunnyGuys, and I started using it for yeah, to talk about NFTs.
Got it.
It was first NBA Top Shot actually in like December 2020, but I'm not into basketball at all. Like that was just like the first NFT project that I learned about, like super randomly.
It
And
was
then
sort of like
January,
the clicking moment for you that digital IP should be tradable on the internet.
yeah, exactly. Like that one did show to me like, okay, you have like physical trading cards. Like why not have digital ones? Like there's not really any difference like in inherent value between them. Like they're
Mhm.
both just a representation of something else that like clearly matters like in people's lives. And the physical cards, like they're just printed on cardboards, but they do go for crazy amounts and people attach a lot of value to them. So why would they not be able to do that with the digital version?
Mhm.
But then in January 2021, I got into like CryptoPunks. I started minting on art blocks. And that for me was like the real moment when like digital arts on the blockchain made sense. Because before then, like I had been on like Nifty Gateway, on Maker's Place, and there was like a lot of artists who would like make a photo of like a physical work and they would sell it as an NFT. But that always felt like really odd to me to have like these two representations of the same artwork. And there was always like this question of like, where is the real value? And in most cases, it was still in the physical. But then with art blocks, with like the code being on chain and like using the transaction hash to generate the unique artwork, that made total sense to me. And I was like, okay, generative arts actually has been waiting for the blockchain to exist. And the art form synergizes perfectly with the blockchain technology.
Mhm.
So yeah, I think since then, like I've mostly been focused on generative arts, and in 2022, that made me like start with a random.
Sorry, if I may go back to the NBA Top Shot. For me, I associate this project with like the best onboarding experience I ever seen in crypto, because like crypto was actually not even put forward. So even if like a non crypto person would go to NBA Top Shot, they would have no idea about this. Since then, I've been trying to find other user experiences like this one. I couldn't find anything. I wonder if you like remember this and if you maybe have the same view or not, or maybe since then you found other onboarding experience which were very friendly for non-native crypto users.
Yeah, I totally agree. That was like the smoothest like onboarding experience ever. But that was also because these guys like were building on their own blockchain, the Flow blockchain, and they were letting you pay with like credit cards. And I think they also had like a custodial wallet for you. Well, no, maybe not custodial, but it was like a wallet you would access like through your email address and you wouldn't interact with the wallet yourself. Like it would just be in the background. And it did also have some downsides. Like it was like super difficult to get your money like out of NBA Top Shots. They had like daily like withdrawal restrictions. I don't know the exact amounts, but it was maybe like $500 like per day. And there was like a lot of people who actually had like a crazy balance of like, let's say like 1 million, but it would literally take them like 2000 days to like withdraw the money from their wallets. And I feel like in general, like there always has been like this tension between like a smooth onboarding flow, but hiding the crypto native like elements to the platform. And I think it's something like a lot of platforms like still struggle with like right now. Like for example, like on Verse, you can create like your own accounts. You can do it with an email address. You can pay with credit cards, but the NFTs you buy, they go to a custodial wallet, and there's like thousands of collectors who like share this wallet. And if one day that wallet gets hacked, like that would be a disaster for the space. Like everybody would lose their NFTs like forever. So yeah, I think a lot of people have built smooth onboarding flows, but they've lost some of the crypto native elements. And right now that's actually changing. With stuff like Privy, you actually can combine the two, and you can let people sign up with an email address, but still have them manage their self-custodial wallets.
I think the regulation is also changing or is about to change. I don't know. Uniswap came out with a announcement, I think 2 days ago. I don't know if you guys saw this regarding how they're aligning their token structure, all of that stuff. Because I know NBA Top Shots, they had a big lawsuit with the SEC saying that these trading cards are securities. I think that was the limitation at the time at least. So I think that the things like privy and regulation, this tension is going to get easier.
Absolutely. That is also stuff like stablecoins that are like really taking off and that are basically like forcing like wallets upon like millions of users who just want to receive like the stablecoin. So I think all of that together is like really like a great setup, like also for digital art and NFTs. Like wallets are actually going more and more mainstream. And it's actually becoming like really, really easy to set them up without losing, like the self-custodial nature of it.
I think one of the interesting onboarding features regarding that topic is if you think about NBA Top Shots, it's really easy to explain why this has value to a normal person. Sports cards are tradable and they become sort of unique, and why generative art has valuable, like a squiggle or something like this. It becomes kind of complicated to explain, let's say, to a normie or something, somebody who's not understanding software, generative art, technology, and finance together. When you were raising for Lerandom, or when you talk to people about Lerandom, how do you sell that? Or what is your like onboarding speech?
Well,
Or you don't even have one. You just sell it to people who already know what's up.
No, I do often have to explain it, and sometimes it's definitely not easy for people to get their head around. I think there's like a lot of like different angles to talk about generative art, and I'm sure you guys are also like really, really good at it and have done it like a lot of times. But I always think it's like important to like stress that like this is the world that we live in. We spend a lot of time like on screens, like in the, let's say, like digital world. The environment is like determined by algorithms, by interfaces, and generative art is actually an art form that relates to all of that, that comments on it, that plays like with these like elemental like building blocks. And I think that's like really important for art, that it does relate to like the times that we live in, and that it uses like the building blocks of like modern society. And that's totally absent, I think, with a lot of like traditional art. Like a lot of it is like still built upon more like 20th century elements, and it doesn't really resonate that much with people who have like grown up on the internet and who do value digital things. That's like one way to put it. Like you can also take like a more like art historical framing where you say like, like artists like have been building systems for a really long time. Systems based art is nothing new. Like using like elements of randomness in your art practice, like all of that is nothing new. But generative art is like maybe one of the first art forms that like really like emphasizes that and that puts it forward. And that was like really hard to do as well, like in a physical nature. Like a lot of artists like used to print like the source code on like the back of the artwork, because they always knew that it's actually the codes that they crafted where they spent all of the time. And for them, the system like had value. But in the physical world, the only way to show that was to print like a physical output, but with blockchain, like you actually can emphasize the system. You can put the system itself on chain. Yeah. So there's many ways to approach that question, but that's just two ways that I talk about it.
No, I liked it a lot.
And if I may remind our dear audience, what you created with the random and the timeline is such a great resource that everyone should check this, I don't know, once a week, because what you've done is like the content, the presentation of it is such a gem that one of the best resources out there. I just wanted to mention it because I generally find it true.
Yeah, I really appreciate that. I can't take much credit for it. It's like the most important thing I did on that front was just like finding Peter, hiring Peter, like giving him like the freedom to create it. He's done like all of the legwork there. But yeah, I appreciate that, Jean.
So I really appreciated your answer because sometimes you sort of get lost in the forest. You don't see the trees anymore. We're in this for so long or for pretty decent time already. When you look at the current like investment horizon of generative art, or let's say it's not been a great trend, but there's also a certain amount of passion behind all of this, what we do and whatever. So we just keep going no matter what the investment looks like. But when we go back and we see it from an investment side, I sort of like, I think, how do you view it now after all these years when you compare it to like general purpose blockchain, stable coins, all the recent developments that are happening, where you see NFTs, generative art from an just purely, let's say, non-emotional investment point of view? Where do you see this going?
I think it's like still super early when it comes to that question of like, will this become like a good investment, I guess? Because like it's also important for listeners to know, I guess, like Random is a for-profit company. Like we try to do more than what like a typical like investment company would do. Like we're also contextualizing the movement. We're writing about it. Like we're showcasing our collection. We're putting like a lot of like time and efforts into the presentation of our collection. But we did raise money from investors in 2022. And the main thing that we did promise them is that we're going to build an iconic collection and that this collection will eventually be worth something, especially combined with the brands we're building around the collection. And I think we have like really captured like a really good like moments to build our collection. Like most of the pieces we have collected, like each was like below $2,000. Like a lot of people had lost like complete faith in NFTs. And now it's like just a matter, I think, of like being patient and just waiting it out and like knowing that we have built something that is like significant and that will become valuable like over time. And the pitch was always that it would take like more than 5 years. It's like a 10-year horizon thing. And for now, I think in the 4th year of that, and we have built a collection, and I think now it's mostly about being patient. But it's like we're already, because we do collection valuations like every few months, and it's already performing well. Like we've already managed to time it like quite well, even though the market isn't like fully back yet.
No, it's really interesting because I think the reality of it is like, if you really dive deep into it, amazing artists you discover, amazing innovation and ideas are insane. But the reality is that most people bought in NFTs because of potential returns and maybe a dopamine hit and whatnot. So from a business perspective, you like, what do you or what are a potential outcome of the NFT market coming back? How do you envision? How could you imagine it, or you don't even worry about it?
Well, I mean, long term, I don't worry about it. Like I think long term it's inevitable, just like a matter of time.
Yeah.
But like over the last years, like I've definitely come to realize that like we can't just sit back and like wait for it to happen. Like we actually have to like solve the issues that we see. Like we have to play like an active role, because it's not like magically all of a sudden going to get there. Like on like the market participant sides, like I think we've like flushed out like all of the speculators, like all of the traders. Right now, there's no reason for anyone to be trading digital arts. Things are typically priced like quite fairly on the primary markets, and there's typically no volume on the secondary. So the only reason to buy it is to hold it for the long term. Otherwise, you're just like burning money, I think. I think we can also see that like the people who are coming in and who are building collections now, like none of them have like a short-term focus.
Mhm.
And we're also seeing like a lot more like adoption, like from the traditional art sites, like over the last year. Like I'm sure you guys have probably seen this, but like every year, Art Basel publishes like a report on the art market, and that was like really shocking to me. That apparently like 51% of the people they interviewed collected digital art like over the last like 12 months, and that's like a very traditional arts focused group. Like you're not interviewing like NFT collectors.
Mhm.
And digital art actually became like the third most significant category for people to spend money on in the traditional art world, at the same level as sculpture. So that's definitely happening. Like digital art is breaking through in the traditional art world. But I don't think most of these collectors are finding their way to NFT marketplaces. I think that's all happening like through galleries, like through dealers. Maybe that's something we should talk about like later in the podcasts, but it's also because of the infrastructure. The infrastructure today for digital art is just really, really bad. It's almost impossible to onboard a traditional art collector.
Mhm.
Based on what you just mentioned, that you've been building and trying to find solutions to help collectors, what you've created with Raster, I think is really amazing for the artist first, because I think it's the first time we have one place to send collectors and say, hey, across the blockchains, here is the entire portfolio of works I created. And also I witnessed it like firsthand during Art Basel Paris. I was invited at dinner with the private collectors, and one of them didn't have an extended knowledge about NFTs. He had like reasonable understanding, but he was like using his computer and using Raster to show his friend and say, "Hey, look at this." And I was like, "Wow, this is amazing," because this is feels to me like a new generation of traditional art collectors who kind of missed the first 4 years. But the way they are getting into this right now is through Raster. So I think congratulations for this, because I was like, wow, this is brand new. It was already a few weeks ago, and I think you're already contributing a lot to onboard new collectors.
Wow, yeah, that's amazing to hear. Because to me, it felt like we had only reached like people in the NFT world like so far, because we haven't done like any marketing. Like I just announced it on Twitter, and my audience is like 95% like digital art collectors. But yeah, with Raster, like we really try to solve like this fragmentation issue. Like as you guys know, like artists mint across like different wallets, they mint across different blockchains. And before Raster, like you had to know how to navigate every ecosystem, and you had to know that the different wallets existed, and you had to identify them. We're trying to do all of that for the collector. So they can just type in the artist name. They can see their entire portfolio across all the blockchains, across all the platforms. And it's still early days. So far, we've aggregated like all the EVM blockchains, so Ethereum and all the layer twos. We've also done it for Tezos. We haven't yet found the time to do it for Solana and for Bitcoin. So that's something we hope to do soon. And yeah, this has all been like my co-founder, basically, Michael Elsdorfer. Like he's the CTO of Raster. In 2021, he built like a similar product, which was called masterpiece.so. I'm not sure if you guys remember this, but it did something similar. Like it also had these artist profiles with aggregation of artworks, but it was not a marketplace. It was just solely focused on discovery. And in 2022, the company got acquired by Kraken. But Kraken then lost faith in NFTs, and they basically discontinued the product, asked him to like work on something else. And since that product got discontinued, like I always thought like, yeah, someone's going to build this like anytime. Like this makes like so much sense. We just need like this base layer for the digital art space, but nobody did. And it was 2023, 2024, nothing changed. We're still relying on the same platforms. And I convinced Michael to leave Kraken to try it again with me, but now as a marketplace. And yeah, we started working on it in December 2024. We launched it in September 2025. And it's still, I think, very simple, like very minimalist. It still lacks a lot of like important features, but so far, like the reception has been like super positive. And surprisingly, I would say majority with artists, collectors also like it, but it's really the artists who are like super excited about it. Because I think many of them know that they should have like a portfolio website, but it's like so much work to do it themselves and to keep it updated. So yeah, I'm really excited about that. That artists want to share their Raster links.
I mean, something that I realized for me is that I still use OpenSea. up until recently because I have the confidence on OpenSea working and it's being secure and all of that. And I think that's funny enough, like a big factor for people who've been doing this before. I've never jumped to another marketplace. I don't know, Jean-Jacques, can you speak to this experience, or even you, Funny Guys, in the sense of before Raster, what were you using? Like, what do you think were good marketplaces? Which ones? I mean, I know obviously you didn't think anybody was great because otherwise you're not building Raster. But what was your experience before?
I don't know, but looking at it from the outside, so I think one key advantage for Raster, just an opinion, of course, is that comparatively to other platforms who kind of were early in the life cycle of the like NFT markets, it always started with like PFPs pretty much. So even like if you go to like the new marketplace of a new chain, you go there, inevitably you will find out like all the PFP everywhere. And then they kind of adapted themselves somehow to the art market, but they kind of kept their DNA of like trading profile pictures. And for me, it feels as an artist, like on Raster, it's like art first. You build it from the ground up to show the art, to have a great user experience. And in a way, it's not like the first mover advantage, but in a weird way, this is benefiting you very much. That's just a take on it. But
like what you just said, like about platforms and PFPs, like I think that's like a real thing. Like that's like where a lot of platforms like got most of their volume from, and they've really created like a UI that's like specialized like for that, for these like large collections. In the past, most of these platforms like also used to have like a good profile page where you could see like all of the work an artist has released, at least like from that wallet. There was never like aggregation across wallets, but at least you could see like the pieces they minted on Super Rare, on Foundation. You could see all the collections, but that's now also gone on most of them, just focusing on the collections, and they're adding like token trading on top of that. And yeah, they do index like every single thing that happens like on the blockchain, like every single NFT. Like you can find it on OpenSea, you can find it on Magic Eden. With Raster, like we've taken like a very different approach. Like we've basically started from like a blank database, and then we have like added digital arts from like all sources we could find. So we would go take everything from Super Rare. We would like whitelist all of those artists. We would look for like all the other stuff they have done on other platforms. And for many months, like that's how we like build up the database to like guarantee that we don't like pull in like all of the PFPs, that we don't pull in like all of like the gaming NFTs, like all of the other stuff that is like happening on chain. But to your point, Nick, like about like you still relying on OpenSea and like you still having like that like trusted feel with them. I think it's like totally normal. Like Raster, yeah, we just launched like 2 months ago. I think it also feels less like a marketplace, and it feels like a little bit different as well compared to like OpenSea and Magic Eden. But we do pull in like all the listings, all the offers from OpenSea. And on top of that, we also aggregate other marketplaces. So everything that happens on Super Rare or on Foundation or Magic Eden, like all of that also shows up on Raster, while it doesn't show up on OpenSea. So technically on Raster, you should get like a better price and you should get more information than you get on the other platforms.
it's a great point for collectors, because here you're kind of reducing the lack of information, which can make price discrepancies higher. So it's like using Raster is like getting an edge for collecting digital art because you have better view of what's going on.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah, like with Raster, like we don't only aggregate the arts, but we also want to aggregate the entire art markets. So you only have to go to like one place to find like all, like it also works for like the activity feeds. Like if you go to an artist profile, like you can go to their activity feeds and you can see like everything that's sold on like all the Ethereum marketplaces, but also on objects, on FX hash. In the future, you will also see like whatever gets sold on like Bitcoin marketplaces, on Solana marketplaces. So if we execute well, then all you need as a collector is Raster and all the information is there. And you shouldn't have an incentive anymore to go to the other marketplaces.
When you said before, you get really great feedback from the artists, which obviously makes sense, having their entire catalog of works in one place, but not so much from collectors yet. What do you think are the main things to improve the UX for the collectors that will generate the same experience.
Yeah, I think collectors they're also happy with Raster. Like it also saves them time, especially on the discovery sides. But I think we still have to like develop like some more, I guess, like collector facing features. Like we have to improve the collector profiles, for example. Like right now they don't have filters, they don't have a search function. Yeah, we have to make the onboarding flow like easier as well, to like add multiple wallets, to connect like your vault address to your collector profile. I think all of that is like the low hanging fruits. And then in the future, what we're like really excited about, and we haven't yet like created this, but we hope to do it like next year, is to make it like super easy for collectors to collect across chains and also to make offers. And yeah, like all of that's like, we hope to make that work like very seamlessly. So you can use like one balance and you can make an offer on a Bitcoin piece. You can make an offer on a Tezos piece, and you don't even like realize anymore that it's all happening on different blockchains. You can buy with credit cards. I think once we nail that part of the collecting experience, it's going to be like so seamless on Raster, and it's going to be a lot easier than just like hopping between all the marketplaces yourself. And maybe one thing to add there, like with Raster, like we also have this, I was talking about it before, but we have all of the market data like in our database, and we have it all like tied to the artists. And I think it's like a super like interesting data source. I think it's probably also what a lot of collectors like want to know, like which artists are seeing a lot of activity, like which ones are doing like the most volume or like the most sales across all their wallets, across all the blockchains. And that's something we also want to show on the platform. So you can go to like Raster's homepage and you can get like a really good sense of the entire digital art markets in one place.
Wow. So yeah, it's like combining art price for like the price dynamics, maybe kind of, I don't know, artsy for the lack of a better things, but like if we consider a chain as a gallery and you have like, yeah, wow, it's fascinating. And also you mentioned, I think your co-founder worked on like a recommendation engine, if I got that right. I would imagine that at some point you would also be in a position to recommend artworks based on what the collector have in their portfolio, for example.
Yeah, absolutely. Like that's the most exciting thing in general about Raster, is that we're really building like this base layer. Like we're just doing like the dirty work of like cleaning everything up and assigning it all to like the right artists. And then we can do like so many like interesting things with that. And one of it is definitely like a recommendation engine or like an AI collector assistant who could maybe like analyze like your collection, who could maybe like find out what your collection strategy is, like which themes you're interested in, like which artists you're excited about. Maybe it can also like recommend you like other artists who are exploring similar themes or who are like aesthetically aligned. We can also use like all of the like on-chain data for that to like find collectors who collect similar pieces to you, but also have some other artists that you haven't heard about yet. So yeah, for sure, there's a lot of possibilities there as well.
The question is are you going to have a feed? Like, are you going to have TikTok for digital art as well, or like the old Hiketnonk thing, or how do you think about the recommendation?
Yeah, probably not a feed, to be honest. Like in general, well, maybe it depends like what you mean with like a feed. Like we do want to show people maybe like recommended artworks like across the platform, but I don't think there will be like a feed that you can just like scroll like as you would do with TikTok. There's also like right now we're not thinking to like include like social elements where you like follow people and you comment on people's like actions. Like we're a bit afraid like if we start going down that route that it becomes like a bit of like a bloated product.
Yeah, I wish we don't have like a TikTok-like feed for art on Raster. Anything you've seen? I'm quite sure you have this capacity of like anticipating trends and technological innovation. Bitcoin 2016 was not something obvious. NFT end of the 2020 was not also too obvious. Is there anything else which is catching your attention today? Could be art related, it could be technology driven. Yeah, I would love to know more about how you see the future.
Yeah, I'm not sure if there's anything that's like non-consensus that I'm excited about. We do use like not in like the user facing elements, but like in the backgrounds, like for our work at Raster. Like we do use like a lot of like AI workflows, like LLM based workflows, and that's helping us like a lot. Like that's helping us like save a lot of time, like while we're, as I mentioned before, like while we're like cleaning up this mess, and we're trying to, like clean up the profiles, like assign all the artworks to the right artists. There's like a lot of like AI-based automation that helps us there, and that saves us like a ton of time. And we're really excited about that. It also helps like me as like a non-technical co-founder. It also helps me get like a lot closer like to the codes and to the products. Like I'm now making a lot of changes myself, like with Cloud Codes. They still get reviewed by my co-founder, and they're not all perfect, but they're becoming like so much more reliable, like super fast. And that's just quite exciting for us, like from a company perspective. Like we hope we can build Raster with like a super small team. And so far there's only been the two of us, and we've gotten, I guess, like quite far, that hopefully we can build like the perfect vision of a route, which is like a handful of employees. And before AI, I don't think that was imaginable. Like even just like, let's say 3 years ago or like 5 years ago, we would have needed, a lot bigger team to do it.
Yeah, it's amazing what you've done. I had no idea you were only just two. But yeah, just the idea of like connecting to multiple blockchains at the same time, like managing the integrations, maintaining these connections as well, cleaning all that mess that as an artist, I kind of contribute to this mess in a way, because sometimes you meet at some place and then, and then there's something else and you meet somewhere else. And there's Solana, and was one of the first to mint like long form on Solana. And I can't imagine how hard it can be. So yeah, thank you for doing this.
Yeah, of course, of course. I think the fragmentation, by the way, I think it's quite good. Like I think it's good that like the primary platforms are fragmented, and I think it's good for an artist that you can release on Tezos, you can release on Ethereum, you can go to Bitcoin ordinals. Every chain like has like a different vibe to it. It's like a different crowd you're like reaching. So yeah, that's like my overarching thesis. That's like fragmentation on the primary is like super helpful. And we need hundreds of galleries. Like we need like tens of platforms. It's good for artists. Like there have to be like the different options. But on the secondary, fragmentation like just sucks, and it's just waste like a lot of people's time. And yeah, that's where we come in.
Time and money as well, because markets are highly inefficient if you cannot, as a collector, understand the latest transaction of a specific series, for example.
Yeah,
Yeah.
yeah. It's holding back like collector adoption. Like if we can make it like 10 times easier to get started with collecting, like we're also going to get like a lot more collectors.
Mm-hmm.
And if there is a lot more collectors, then a lot more artists will be able to live off their art practice. And yeah, that's a dream, that we don't have like a few hundreds of digital artists, of like full-time digital artists, but that we have like many thousands in the future.
And now that you've seen and you have access to a lot of data about the artist, but if we think more about like a perception-based approach or a qualitative approach, what strikes you when you see, let's say, a new artist and you're like, oh, wow, I didn't know this artist. I really liked the artwork. Do you have some kind of, I don't know, if like a framework maybe too strong, but how do you collect new art?
It's a good question. I think it's mostly based on my feeling, on like what connects with me. I definitely don't have like a checklist or anything like that. Like there's no like formal process. Yeah, it just, especially after spending like all these years and like thousands of hours like looking at arts, like you really start to like trust your eye and like trust your feeling. And recently, like I have been getting like quite interested, like also in more like figurative work. Like I've been like mostly focused on generative art, and it's mostly abstracts in nature, like especially like the procedural generative arts, stuff like art blocks. Like it's almost by definition abstract. And I think maybe I just got a little bit bored with that, like over the last months, and I've really fallen in love with like some like figurative artists who still use like a lot of the like generative artifacts, and who uses like glitch like in their creations. And there's people like Yuri underscore JJJ. I'm not sure if you guys have heard of him. Like
Oh,
I
yeah,
think his work is fantastic.
I think I have worked from them at least a couple of years ago, and
Ah,
I'm
wow,
really
okay.
glad, super glad that I can see more and more on my timeline collectors, and yeah, I'm a big fan.
Never
Yeah.
heard of them.
Yeah,
or
you
him?
should look up his Raster profile to get a good sense. It's really terrific work. There's also this artist called RJ, who I also like a lot. And yeah, why do I like them? Like I'm not sure. I'm not sure like explicitly why. They're doing great stuff, and it's really catching my attention, especially after going so hard on abstract arts for a long time.
Jean-Jacques,
And
going or
if I
yeah?
switch my question to the complete opposite, also because you mentioned in Raster that you aggregate all this data. I don't know if this is something you've already researched or not, but what's the number one mistake you could have spotted just looking at the numbers that digital artists do, which could be easy to avoid? I'm I'm aware it's a very complex question, but if you had these kind of insights, I'm sure it would be extremely valuable for all the artists who are listening to the podcast.
Based on the numbers. Yeah, I don't know. Honestly, I think there's like so many ways to succeed. There's like some artists who have really minted like thousands of works. There's some artists who only minted like a handful of works. And there is like successful examples of the two. And in general, there's like some collectors who like recommend artists to keep their work scarce, to not mint too much. I've never liked it. It's like, as a collector, like I would never want to advise that to an artist. I think in general, more art is better. For an artist, it's also better to have more collectors than just a handful. And I think a lot of artists who did like really well, like in 2021, 2022, like they also find themselves like in a really like strange spots where they have like these like inflated valuations. They have like these collectors with like certain expectations, and it makes it like really hard for them to like experiment, to release new art. Like they don't want to hurt whatever they achieved in 21, 22, which often is like detached from reality. So I think in general, as an artist, yeah, just keep going, keep creating, keep reaching new collectors. Get too scared about like keeping your work scarce. Yeah, I've seen a lot of like successful artists with like thousands of works, and their market is still fine, and they have like a lot broader supports than like a lot of the artists who kept it like super scarce. One mistake that I think some artists did make in like the early Tezos days, like specifically, is like setting the artist royalties like extremely high. There's like a lot of pieces on Hic et Nunc where like the royalties are like 25% or 30%. And back then it made sense because the artist was like almost giving the work away for free. Like they were like they were selling it for like a few Tezos, like on the primary market. So they put like the royalties like super high in case the artwork ever became valuable. They would still get compensated for that. But in general, I don't think that's like a good thing. Like that's just too high. Like that's just going to like hurt your market in the long term. It's definitely going to keep some collectors away, like when it's like 30% royalties. And I actually wonder, like with Raster, if we should play some role there. Maybe we should come up with like a standard where artists can modify their royalties, where they can like put them to like 10% and correct this so it doesn't hurt their markets like going forward. Because I think a lot of them, like in hindsight, a lot of them would have put the royalties significantly lower.
Yeah, and I would imagine that the consequence of that is like a collector bypasses completely the royalty payment because it's considered too much. Some artists, I'm convinced, would be happy to say, oh yeah, in retrospect, I should have done different, and now I'm happy that I can update this setting.
Yeah, absolutely. Absolutely. Yeah. I think that when the royalty percentage is that high, it's also hard to even blame a collector for bypassing it. I think most of them would still respect it, but yeah, it does get painful when it's 30%.
Let me ask you more about the future of Raster. I think when we think about Random, you guys have been long enough to understand what the future of Random is going to look like because you've built an extraordinary collection and you've done extraordinary literature and information, all of that. What do you think of Raster's development, further things? I know we've talked about some aspects, but is there anything else you want to talk about?
So right now, like Raster is still, like I would say, like very minimalist. Like you have artist profiles, you have artwork profiles, artwork pages, and collector profiles, and that's it. But I think for us to like really become like the base layer for digital art and to like really give people like full context on like what's going on here, we also need to represent galleries. We also need to create like some profiles for platforms, because like right now, like all of that context that these parties add, it's not really represented on Raster at all. And then I
think
think
that is an extremely interesting topic, because if you think about it, super rare focuses on one-of-ones is a total different value than editions on object or collections on art blocks or collections on other long-form platforms. Like, what is your opinion about this? Let's say, what is your favorite style? What is your favorite style bit so far? Which one do you think will hold up the best?
I think they're all like very complementary. I think it's really, I'm repeating myself, but it's like so good. There's like so many different primary platforms, and that you can sell like a one-of-one on super rare, but you can also sell like an edition on objects. And I think for an artist to do both, like makes total sense. And maybe every now and then they release like a larger collection on art blocks or with a gallery, and all of those things combined, I think create like a very healthy economy like for that artist. And on Raster, we of course like want to show all of it. We want to show all of the work on the artist profile, but we also want to make sure that like gallerists like also appear on Raster, so people can also find out, for example, like all the artworks that Kate Vaz or Mimi and Guillaume like have released like over the years, because that's also like a great way to discover other artists like through these profiles. I think for gallerists like right now, like it's a little bit like an awkward position, because when you go to like OpenSea or other NFT marketplaces, like it's almost like they don't exist, because typically the minting like happens from the artist profile, and the galleries may be mentioned like in the description of the artwork, but there's no representation of them whatsoever. They do have their own websites, they do have their own Twitter profile, but you have to find it as a collector to like learn more about the gallery. On Raster, we want to mention that on the artwork page. We want to mention it like on the artist profile, like the galleries that they work with. And that should also help galleries like reach more collectors. Maybe we can also create like some advanced features for them that they can maybe like announce like upcoming releases on specific artist profiles, or they can notify, let's say, the collectors of Jean-Jacques about an upcoming release that Jean-Jacques is doing with the gallery. I think there's like a lot to be done there. In general, with Raster, another like big takeaway for me, like after launch, was that other platforms and other startups are very interested in our database, because they know that we put like almost an entire year into this aggregation. And if you're running, like for example, like if you're running like a digital art display company, let's say like White Walls or I don't know, like Deca, like a lot of these companies, they also want these aggregated profiles of artists. Like they know it's like valuable for their user, so they can just like put on like a playlist that shows like all the works by Kim Eisendorf on their television. But right now, they either have to like build it themselves, or they just can't offer that at all to their users. I think for Raster, over time, we should make our database available for other people to build on top of. And then I think within the digital art space, it's going to become like 10 times easier to build products for the digital art space. So and that's also how we can keep our product like quite simple, by just powering other products with our API instead of trying to do everything ourselves.
Jean-Jacques, do you want to have anything else to add to this, or what are we thinking?
No, I really enjoyed understanding how did you get started in the crypto, and then how did like the art made everything clicking together, starting with like a more qualitatively based approach by giving some context, by creating the timeline, and having Peter writing all these great articles about the context of it all, and then taking the direction of having a more quantitative approach by aggregating the data, by giving a new voice to the artist in a way, by helping them to have their portfolio cross-chain, which is also benefiting the collectors, and having this great user experience to collect the works. And of course, understanding some aspects of where you're going and the vision about the product is making everything very exciting. And I think, we can be grateful to have people like you elevating both sides of the coin, like the qualitative approach, the quantitative one, and thinking about maybe not too advanced users. So thank you. I would say, big thank you. That's what I wanted to say.
Yeah, thank you, Jean-Jacques. That means a lot coming from you. Really appreciate that.
No, I think it was super insightful, and I think we can stop here, and then we can just finish up the evening